The insane Epstein press conference that Melania Trump held this week should not be a one-day or a one-week story. It shouldn't be a one-month story. We should really never stop talking about this until we get to the bottom of the Epstein files, until every document is released, and until accountability is brought and justice is brought for every single survivor. And I think the press conference comes at a very interesting time, especially given the conversation about blackmail that Epstein could have been collecting for Mossad as the Israeli government is pulling the strings of Donald Trump and his illegal war on Iran. But that all came together when a Palm Beach prosecutor shared some very interesting perspectives about what Melania had to say and why, as it relates to a relationship between her and Epstein that has been talked about a lot and is the reason Melania Trump is trying to silence Michael Wolff. I want to get into all of this and its connection, but it does start with the fact that Melania Trump made this announcement apparently without Donald Trump's knowledge.
Yeah, Nicole, that is the question that we're all asking today. In fact, I just got off a very quick call before we went to air with President Trump, who said he was in the middle of a war meeting and that he couldn't talk for very long and had to go, but that actually he had no prior knowledge to the topic that Melania Trump, his wife, was going to be touching upon today in his statement. In her statement, he then repeated that he had to go, but before we hung up the phone, he said that she didn't know him, presumably referring to Jeffrey Epstein.
Of all of the details, I think that this one might be the most interesting, at least for the dynamic, of course, between Melania and Donald Trump. I have speculated for a long time that these two are at least separated and maybe on their way to a divorce, or maybe Melania doesn't want to divorce Trump because she knows everything about his health and that things are going to maybe come to a close soon and that she can get the biological divorce, the old father time divorce from her horrible husband. But what also could be the case here is that Donald Trump just forgot that Melania did tell him, but he didn't remember. I don't think that's what it is. I just think she didn't want to tell him, that Melania knows that she is preempting something, and she is certainly preempting something if what I believe about what Todd Blanche's job as Attorney General to get through the final batch of files to protect Donald Trump and then to leave is actually the case. Now, that gets a lot more interesting when we think about what Melania said in contrast to Todd Blanche, which we saw Robert Garcia break down right here. And this all ties together with what this prosecutor had to say about the potential sexual relationship between Melania and Epstein.
Todd Blanche 2 days ago at a press conference he had just a couple days ago, he came out and was very clear that he said there's nothing else that's going to move forward on the Epstein investigation. They've released what they're going to release, and it's not really the DOJ's job to do much more. I mean, that's the opposite of what Melania Trump said today. This is an investigation that Donald Trump has called a hoax, that they've tried to brush away, that they've tried to end multiple times, that Pam Bondi tried to kill herself, that Todd Blanche is now trying to do, possibly under the direction of the president. And to have this kind of going all in by Melania Trump, look, I'm not sure why she's doing this. I don't know the timing, but what I can say is that those two pieces of what she said are going to be really important in the days and weeks ahead.
So they are obviously saying quite opposite things. Blanche is saying, we're done, let's move on, don't talk about it, it doesn't matter. Who is this Epstein guy? Everyone move on. There's not even more coming out. And then Melania says, I did not sleep with Epstein. Please buy my book. We need to buy my book. My book says everything. And that gives us like all the information we really need to know without saying anything. She says everything, that no more is coming, because Melania wouldn't be making that announcement and certainly wouldn't be making that announcement without Trump knowing, unless she was looking to protect herself. Because my first question was, why wasn't this a statement? Like, why wasn't this just a letter from her lawyer or published on her social media? That would have made sense. This just brings a lot of attention. And maybe it's to distract from other Epstein findings coming, but then Donald Trump would have to know that there are too many questions to ask. It's why we need answers, but a lot of the answers that we get come from one prosecutor and one professor, sharing information about the relationship between Melania and Epstein and why it looks like this might be what she's covering up. Ex-Florida prosecutor links Melania's Epstein remarks to fear of sex story being leaked. During an appearance on MS Now on Friday morning, former Palm Beach County State Attorney Dave Ehrenberg joined a growing chorus that Melania Trump's surprise address to the nation about her relationship with the convicted abuser was an effort to get out in front of possible new courtroom revelations. Unlike others playing the guessing game, he suggested the speech was tied to Epstein recordings that belonged to author Michael Wolff. Speaking with MS Now host Jackie Almanet, the ex-prosecutor was asked about the social circles Donald Trump's wife mentioned as she denied being a friend of Epstein. "I'm not part of those social circles," he joked, the prosecutor that is, before adding, "but there are pictures of Melania, as you are aware, showing with Donald Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, and the person who has ties to Melania to Epstein directly is journalist Michael Wolff. And I think what she did yesterday was try to get ahead of the story. Because she and Michael Wolff are involved in litigation, he elaborated Michael Wolff, apparently, according to the Daily Beast, who she name-checked in the press conference, has these recordings, and the recordings have Jeffrey Epstein's voice on them, saying that the first time that Melania and Donald Trump had sex was on Jeffrey Epstein's plane. Of course, Melania also denied that Epstein introduced Donald and Melania. I think this press conference was a way to get ahead of it. I think it's less about the social circles as about the recordings that she's worried will come out. More audio, the prosecutor says, will come out about their relationship. We also have this audio and video of a Prince Andrew biographer talking about the fact that he believes Melania and Epstein were lovers.
So here we are with him in Mar-a-Lago, as you see with Epstein. Sorry, can you see okay? Epstein, a woman called Gwendolyn Beck, who Andrew took to the island, and Melania. I had various references in my book to Melania Trump. Epstein had actually been her lover before Trump, but Trump didn't like that in the book, so he ordered it to be taken out of the book. After about 60,000 copies had been printed, so it seemed to be a pretty pointless gesture, but anyway, our publishers did it, but I keep spreading the word.
So we both have the leaked audio that the prosecutor is describing, in which Michael Wolff is alleging that Melania and Jeffrey Epstein were connected before Melania and Donald Trump were, that there was a relationship between them. So the prosecutor is suggesting that that is part of the reason that Melania is kind of freaking out. That leaked audio that we've talked about before from Michael Wolff, he has shared it continuously, really since almost the end of the 2024 election. And ever since then, he's been continuing to leak out what he claims is hours and hours of recordings of him talking to Jeffrey Epstein about his relationship with Donald Trump. And then, of course, also his relationship with Melania Trump. So that leaked audio, along with the prosecutor alluding to it and saying that they believe more is to come, considering this is a former Florida prosecutor, gives me all the reason to believe that, yeah, I think Melania and Jeffrey Epstein certainly had a relationship that more information is going to be coming out about, that we're going to see Melania's name brought up more in the Epstein files. Of course, it was part of the names that they were redacting. That email that we had, that glowing email that Melania sent to Ghislaine Maxwell, was one in which she said, "Oh, you look so great in the magazine, and so did Jeffrey, and so did everybody, and we love you, and I'm going to be in New York, and I got to see you, what's going on?" And then she not denied that being friendly at all, but Melania's name was crossed out, right? We remember that. Melania's name was taken out of the files. It said Melania, Ghislaine, they were communicating. And so is there other redactions in which Melania's name is mentioned? Because they blacked out Ghislaine Maxwell. It was obvious that she was writing to her. They blacked out Melania. Is that part of what should be uncovered? We need members of Congress back in those rooms in the DOJ in which they were pouring through all these documents. We really do, because that is the only way that we are going to be able to obtain more information about Melania Trump's connections to Jeffrey Epstein. But it does seem like they could have possibly had a relationship. I don't want to even talk about it because it's disgusting, between the two of them. Of course, Melania's modeling agent was someone who, quote unquote, sourced women for Epstein. Of course, this was trafficking. But the possibility that they had a relationship is very strong. And I think as Melania understands that Trump worries that any more attention to Epstein is devastating to him, and of course, then it kind of falls on her, she certainly doesn't want it talked about. But let's think about this information in another way. I talked about Thomas Massie, I talked about Mossad, I talked about Israel earlier. Thomas Massie raised this question recently, really raised this problem with the DOJ's cover-up in the light of Pam Bondi's firing, and I want to take a look and talk more about it.
Why do you think he is working so hard not to get them released for so many months? What do you think the real reason is?
These files implicate billionaires and friends of his and political donors that he's trying to protect. And Epstein also had close ties to our own intelligence agencies and Israel's intelligence agencies. That's why there's so much effort in trying to stop this. And I do believe they'll try to stop it somewhere else.
Now, before we even talk about these files, what could be in them, how that could be pushing Donald Trump to act on behalf of the Israeli government, can I just say that it is fucking crazy that we are having to worry if the president of the United States is waging an illegal war on a sovereign nation on behalf of a supposed ally because that ally was using a pedo to collect information on U.S. officials, on high-profile people in the United States, now our president, and is waging war with that information against us. That supposed ally was trying to collect blackmail to extort the United States of America. The fact that that is even something we are considering, and is very probable and very realistic, is insane. Like, that is crazy. We have to be honest that that is batshit. That is a possibility that we are thinking about, that Israel is extorting Donald Trump through the blackmail they collected from Jeffrey Epstein in his time, possibly as a Mossad agent. Again, we don't know, but there are clear connections between Epstein and the Mossad, Epstein and Israel, Epstein and former Israeli prime ministers, high-level Israeli officials. The fact that that is even something that we are considering is so batshit crazy that maybe Melania made this announcement to preempt any blackmailing that Israel might be doing of the president to get him to escalate this war. That is wild that that is a conclusion that we could possibly reach. And I know some people are going to say that's conspiratorial, but it seems pretty on the level, doesn't it? Israel understands that this is their last best chance with the major shift in public opinion against the wars that they drag us into, the genocide that they are committing, the offensive attacks, the misadventure they go on in the Middle East. They understand that public opinion is shifting. Americans broadly believe that we need to cut off all aid to Israel, offensive weapons, defensive weapons, that they got plenty of money and they could figure it out on their own, that they're not a partner, they're a parasite. And so this is their last-ditch effort to force further war in Iran, to seize illegally and occupy more territory in the Middle East. And the fact that they might be using Epstein blackmail to do that is wild. But that is the state of play right now. And some may call it conspiratorial, but I think it needs to be talked about. We're going to on this show, and if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you soon.